think it's time to dunk on Payday 3 again. I have to play Payday 3 though. But then I get to dunk on Payday 3 again. Shit. Man. Now I gotta. Okay. While this junk is loading, where do we start? Okay. So, yeah, Payday 3 bad. Ha ha ha. Everybody knows. What I'm specifically wanting to look at is the narrative this time around. In this video, I'm just talking about Payday 3 and its narrative. I am only referring to the initial plotline, which concludes with Touch the Sky. Not only is 8 heists absolutely not enough time to deliver a story with any complexity, but somehow the execution of it is still utterly terrible and... Thank you, phone. And terrible at the very core of the idea. And as soon as I started looking into it, I was baffled with just how awful it is. And that no one else seems to have noticed or talked about it at all. So, that's what this video is about. Now, Payday is not an excellent story in its own right. And in some ways, it doesn't really have a greater narrative. Well, it's a bit more complicated than that, but it can't be denied the story is very messy, and particularly early on, didn't really have an endpoint in mind at all, and towards the end had to really do some creative backflips that kind of go a bit too far into fantasy magical save the world junk that is a bit too far away from my career crime spree game. Regardless of specific subplots or alternative ending stuffs, the important part insofar as continuing the story is that the gang retires at the end of Payday 2. Chronologically, the White House is the final heist of Payday 2, and by its completion, secret ending, junk or not, the gang gets themselves pardoned and are freed to take their mountainous, ill-gotten gains to whatever better life they wish. Naturally, Payday 3 allegedly has a greater interest in a more clean, focused, and deliberate narrative where they will be able to keep the story grounded and controlled, unlike Payday 2. Because, let's be honest, if you've watched that Noli video, Payday is a bit of a mess. I have no doubt that the team has every intention of letting more than a few subplots stay confined to Payday 2 and be very picky with what gets to stay canon or get axed for Payday 3, and that is perfectly fine. Ideal, even. Payday 2's story is miraculous, not for virtue of making a ton of sense or having been foreshadowed from Heist 1, but simply for the fact that they were able to bend and contort every which way just to actually say the end without 1,000 fatal plot holes. So the Payday gang is retired. Their crime spree ended on their own volition after taking care of their own vendettas, and the exhausted, long-since eclipsed police force jumped on the chance for the Payday gang to declare an end to their reign. Publicly, they are declared dead, even up to the mastermind of it all, Bane, Crime.net, and the Payday gang is deceased in the eyes of the masses. The gang drifts apart over the course of 10 entire years, all 22, 6 of which should be considered not canon to Payday 3 as they were crossover characters, and, well, unless they return, I don't think they should be acknowledged in any way. All the heisters that are real are free to go wherever they wish under whatever new identities they might claim. Payday 3's story starts with Ralph Garnett, a character who has a vendetta against the gang due to their repeated hits of his father's jewelry business. the likes of which caused the Garnet Group to eventually bleed out and declare bankruptcy. In doing so, Ralph's father, Nathan Garnet, would commit suicide. We know this was a slow bleed out, but there is never a confirmation that the Garnet Group has fallen during Payday 2, meaning the company attempts but fails to recover from this hit. Chronologically speaking, this hit on the Garnet Group takes place quite close to the middlemost heist in the gang's reign, but it is able to keep afloat until the White House heist, as no heist or lore in Payday 2 ever confirms that the Garnet Group actually goes under. So it has to happen after the continuity of Payday 2. The Garnet Group was also heavily tied to Murky Water, which dissolves after the White House heist, so I'm very confident that the Garnet Group could not have lasted too much longer after the White House heist. And, devastating narrative issue 1 is right here. The gang steals presidential bonds from the White House, which they use to pardon themselves of all of the crimes. Legally, they have a fresh start, and on top of this, the Washington police force has long since been overmatched and at the entire mercy of the gang. By pardoning themselves, the police jump at the opportunity to end their crime spree and close the case by declaring/confirming to the public that the Payday gang and the associated crime.net in its entirety died in their attempt to rob the White House. This goes as far as to award Commissioner Solomon Garrett the Public Safety Officer Medal of Valor by the President himself. The only people who should know that the Payday gang is still out there are, well, themselves, of course, those involved in crime.net directly, and a very small portion of the top-ranking Washington police force/FBI. Anyone else at all, has every reason to believe that the Payday gang is dead as a result of the attempted White House robbery. Therefore, it does not make sense for Ralph Garnet to believe that the Payday gang is alive at all. This omission of an explanation as to why Ralph Garnet knows that the Payday gang is alive is such an amateurish and foolish violation of a very basic fundamental writing principle. The more that went into achieving something in the past means all the more that you have to do to undo what was achieved. You have to explain the why. You have to explain the how, because not doing so is such an immeasurably disrespectful invalidation of the source material. This is why the end is Hollywood's worst nightmare, because when the time comes for you to give in to the demand for a sequel, you have to damage the source material. Unless the thing you are expanding off of was something that didn't actually end in the first place, you have to upend something. And to remain on topic, here in the case of Payday, you will have to invalidate the entirety of everything that goes into the ending of Payday 2. No Mercy Flashback, Reservoir Dogs, Brooklyn Bank, Breaking Feds, Henry's Rock, Shacklethorne Auction, Hell's Island, Border Crossing, Dragon Heist, San Martin Bank Heist, Breakfast in Tijuana, Bullock's Mansion, Ukrainian Prisoner, Black Cat, Mountain Master, Midland Ranch, Lost in Transit, Hostile Takeover, Crude Awakening, and of course the White House itself do not matter. All of the effort that the characters put in to make that happen by not explaining to any degree why this one random guy just happens to know that the Payday gang is alive in entirety, it invalidates all of that. On top of also spitting in the face of us players who embodied the hardship our characters were undergoing, there is even a level this disrespect of the narrative spills out to disrespect you, the player. It undercuts any achievement that you might have felt for those heists, because the greater purpose of having completed them is meaningless. Sure, yes, in practice, most people probably didn't give two fucks about the story and just wanted more playgrounds with which to shoot hordes and steal loot. Crafting a story with such clear and blatant apathy? To me, someone who cares about narrative, well, that tells me that Starbreeze expects you not to care. And That's the generous interpretation, because to be honest with you, based on the rest of the game, I actually read that as Starbreeze thinks you're dumb enough that they can get away with it. Because, and what has made me so polarized by this, is that it isn't an error, it isn't a mistake or an oversight. It is an intentional omission. They didn't bother. Because there isn't even so much as a hint at a mystery that maybe Ralph Garnett had access to more information than maybe he should have, well, then it basically means that just any random person can figure it out. I want to move on from this point now. I believe I've belabored it enough. This point has just bothered me in particular so much because it is a issue born out of having not done anything at all. I would still be angry if it was some shitty retcon or just some half-assed excuse given, but at least in that world it would be an explanation of any kind. So, okay, with that out of the way, narrative issue number 2. Why does it take 10 years after the White House job for Ralph to get a hit sent on the gang? It would only make sense that shortly after his dad dies that he would then look to exact revenge. But then the closer he does this to his dad's death, the less resources Ralph should have access to, as he is clearly shown to have an immense wealth, having an assistant advise him to cut back on investing in the gang's downfall, and being able to be sued by Wixia after 99 boxes for billions of dollars. So what does Ralph do? And it also can't be Garnet Group that he owns, because Shade speaks of Garnet Group's bankruptcy as though it hasn't existed for a long time. So what does Ralph do? Why does it take him 10 years to bother with deciding to get revenge for his father's suicide? And how does he have the resources to act on that? Alright, so somehow, Ralph has reason to suspect that the gang is alive. Somehow, magically has the resources to have billions of dollars tied to him, yet still have his father kill himself for the Garnet Group's end. Relatively recently, what does Garnet do? He approaches Patricia Shark. Apparently, she actually existed in Payday 2 as a name in the lore as a major shareholder in Gensec, the security company that the gang directly rivals for a majority of their spree. Due to the gang's actions, Gensec at some point pulls out of Washington, D.C. after many clients terminated contracts with them, which hit Shark, a key investor, very hard, of course. In Payday 3, Shark is the CEO of Golden Shark Bank, which is successful and largely associated to her personal reputation as a good person, I guess. Why the fuck would Ralph Garnett look to Shark, whose reputation, which we are told has aspirations for political movements, therefore one which has undergone immense public scrutiny, as squeaky clean? Perhaps he knows she has ties to Gensec, but we aren't told anywhere that Shark continues as a key shareholder, as Golden Shark Bank has very little ties with Gensec. Almost nothing in Golden Shark Bank has Gensec labeling on it. Minor correction, for whatever reason when I was recording the majority of the audio for this, I did not write it down on my notes and so therefore forgot that it actually is directly stated that Patricia is still a shareholder in Gensec. It doesn't really change my criticism at all, but it does sort of shoot itself in the foot because the only supporting evidence for it is the single line of dialogue that Shade says to confirm that. Like I said about the bank, it's got nothing to do with Gensec. None of the systems in it are Gensec security. Again, besides the recycled guards who have Gensec on their uniform. Even still, investments in a leading security company of the day that the Payday gang caused heavy damage to isn't a very strong tie to plot revenge on ghosts with. Shark is still a very innocent and respectable person in public view, who has everything to lose by plotting assassinations or in any way affiliating with legal activities. Unless Ralph already knows that she's dirty, which case why and how, Shark would be the last person he should look to. Like, as far as Ralph should know, as far as the public knows, Shark is this very clean, innocent, good, upholding person. So, if you're going to plan an illegal assassination on people who have not existed for 10 years, not exactly the person I think is most willing to do that. Additionally, why the fuck does Shark agree? She would also have to have a reason or be convinced by Ralph, who she actively and clearly does not respect, to his reasoning that the gang is still alive, and then to engage in organizing or funding over a dozen different high-intensity manhunts, which have to be insanely secretive for Shade not to catch on, and hire international assassins to kill 20-odd people across the world at the exact same time, something that should be ludicrously expensive and present an overwhelming risk to her PR if so much as a hair of it gets out. Shark would have to go through so many steps of obfuscation to even consider attempting this kind of thing, which in and of itself increases the risk of leaks or moles. Even if Shark knows the gang is alive and is out there somewhere, she also knows that they are inactive, that the Payday gang is exceedingly vindictive, and that she gains literally nothing from hunting them down. She is an idiot for even consider going after them, even if she magically knows it's a fruitful search. Based on a conversation with Ralph, he seems to be investing heavily in this manhunt, which leads me to interrogate what he's spending money on. We learn nothing about Concord in the initial arc, and it doesn't make sense for Ralph to be paying Shark, as surely she would have enough money. The cutscenes seem to paint her as the wallet of the operation, so unless Ralph is having to reimburse her, which further makes Shark's involvement make no sense since he would just then be paying for it himself anyways, and therefore Ralph is then the wallet of the operation. Shark has every reason to bail on this. Even if she's harbored a ton of ire against the Payday gang, she has everything to lose and nothing to gain. Okay, so all of this shit, and we aren't even on the first heist of the game yet. Jesus Christ. Somehow, despite the absolute logistical and scouting nightmare that is 18 to 22 different individual manhunts, any of which could be based anywhere in the world, most of whom's real names shouldn't be known, and would probably have assumed permanent aliases after the White House job. Every single last gang member is managed to be tracked down. And here's an important little detail that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. All of this absurd intensity searching does not at any point get clocked by Shade, who by this point in the story is simply some random underworld chick who made a promise to Bane to keep her eye out on the gang and make sure their retirement stays quiet. Yeah, Shade doesn't pick up a fucking hint of this shit. Based on her characterization and her lack of personal contacts, I can only assume it's been the sole fucking thing she's been doing for the past 10 years. So a jolly good way to introduce a character we're supposed to really trust by having her fuck up the one responsibility we're told she had. Anyway, yeah, so with Shade none the wiser, every single gang member gets attacked by an assassin at the same time. Now, I'm a little conflicted about that point in particular because, on one hand, yeah, it makes sense that there would be some sort of failsafe in guard, that if shit were to start going down and, you know, gang members started getting off one by one, that the rest would get alerted to it relatively quickly. But on the other hand, that, like, just continues to exacerbate the logistical nightmare that doing this would be. You're telling me some of the resident ghosts in the gang weren't at least a little bit difficult to keep tabs on? Clover, Dragon, Houston? Not even the slightest bit worried that just maybe one of these potentially 22 different people could give you the slip on go day just out of sheer paranoia? I don't know, it's a tough one, but this is the kind of detail that is more what I would hope to be seeing out of this type of storytelling. There is justification, there are threads of logic to be plucked at, and whether it satisfies me or not, I can acknowledge that it's a bit of a pinch. Anyway, so yeah, all at the same time. All of these different hits go in all at once, and as far as we're aware, at minimum, only one actually succeeded. We are shown a newspaper clipping of a gas leak explosion that killed 3, and I have seen a lot of people use that as justification for saying that, oh, 3 heisters must not be able to return, but you can't honestly fucking tell me that that gas leak explosion is actually responsible for 3 different heisters. I guarantee you that shit was collateral damage. But yeah, so even if it is three heisters all caught in the same single gas leak explosion, based on how humiliated Shark, Ralph, and Concord speak of the assassination attempts, and that newspaper clipping is the only confirmation we're given that anyone was actually offed, I am inclined to say that every single other assassination attempt other than the gas leak was a failure. Up to 10 years of obscenely careful, absurdly intensive searching. Some other synonym of extremely aggressive secrecy, the likes of which would have cost you out the ass. And at the very final step of the race, a single one of these 3 characters, Shark, Ralph, and Concord, a single one of them, let alone all 3, a single one of them, decide to half-ass it on the chance that the people you've been surveilling for up to 10 years and keeping a close eye on and making sure that it is absolutely without a doubt the person you are looking for, an individual of which slaughtered, stealthed, and robbed their way across the fucking planet without ever taking a casualty against the United States' best capabilities. A dozen different gangs, a cartel, Russian operatives, and top-of-the-line world-class PMC. And again, when you have surveilled each of these individuals intensely, you should know everything about where they live, what they do, and anything and anybody that they might have access to. All of that. How can I possibly, in a million years, ever take you seriously when you tell me that their excuse for fucking it up on every single person, barring maybe 1, 2, or 3, on a must not have gotten that fat from retirement?
What the fuck? You're supposed to be dead. We sent our best operatives. I expect they made a mistake of thinking retirement made the target soft.
Are you fucking kidding? That's it. That is the entire explanation we get for how it could have been blown. The people who care this much to take this long to spend that much money this secretly, cheap it out on the last hurdle because they think retirement has fattened them up and slowed them down? How can you say that when change is right there, built like a fucking tank? You're telling me they weren't intimately aware of what firearms any of the gang members would have had access to with which to defend themselves with? I mean, whether it's canon or not, these motherfuckers ran with John motherfucking Wick! You know, only the guy who, out of retirement, drops an entire fucking fire team that ambushed him in his own house, all of whom were in full stealth kit, and he takes them down with a fucking pistol? That guy who came begging to them to let him join their team? And you half-assed and underestimate them? Are you fucking serious? I mean, shit, even if I had to half-ass it on a couple of them, At least the core four, the motherfuckers who stole fucking presidential pardons, I would have paid out the nose to glass the entire fucking neighborhood they were in. If you have a shot on the Payday gang with advantage like that, you take every expenditure not to miss. I want a goddamn orbital strike, 30 helicopters, 2 armored tanks, a half dozen IFVs, and at least 200 ground troops. Just for Dallas. Okay, so, anyway, Wolf, Dallas, Chains, and Hoxton, plus Joy, I guess, why not, have been happily, quietly enjoying their retirement for 10 years. And then, literally out of the blue, an attempt is made at their life. No warning, no preamble, just an international assassin showing up with a 200 box round with your name on it. Because plot, you win your fight, because I guess I just have to assume that every single hit they ordered was just a single dude with a pocket knife or some shit. And what's the first thing that happens as soon as you finished your 1v1? You get a call from a stranger you've never met, whose voice you've never heard, who tells you, "Damn, that sucks, you didn't get killed by that hitman. You should definitely go to New fucking York. It'll be great, I promise. All of your other gang members are here, smoking beers and drinking cigarettes." And you, embodying Dallas, Chains, Wolf, or Hoxton, or Joy, again, right off the crumbling of your last 10 years of whatever nice free life you've been living, the very first voice you hear after this hitman attempt, who you do not know, you do not recognize, can you honestly say that you'd trust that for a second? With their lives destroyed and unable to access so much as $1, Dallas, Chains, Wolf, and Hoxton, and Joy, I guess, all reconvene in New York, and so commences the unhappy reunion. So I guess no one has even the slightest inkling of potential suspicion in Shade. Well, all of them just immediately, at face value, just 100% buy in? Okay, yep, sure. A minor point here to insert that we are told a little bit later. Dallas actually does know about Shade, but in the way they reveal that, they do specifically confirm Wolf, Hoxton, Chains, and Joy have no fucking idea who she is.
Y'all know anything about this Shade?
I know she was mates with Bane. Ran crime night servers and whatnot. Dallas knows her from before.
As long as she keeps the jobs coming, I'm good.
Yeah, fair enough. So what you do for retirement?
Oh, it's kind of a blur, man. I'm just glad it's over. Started to go crazy.
Started to. You've always been bonkers, lad.
You're telling me even Hoxton doesn't have at least a passing suspicion that maybe this person who instantly reached out to me as soon as my life was upended might have something to do with it? I don't know, fuck me for trying to pay attention to logic. So yeah, now we're in New York, the gang is back together, it's time to do crime again. The old life has pulled us back in. We do no rest for the wicked because we want money. That is its complete and entire relevance to the narrative. We meet with one of the late DLC contractors who issues us road rage, which we do because we need money, and that's road rage's entire importance to the narrative. We meet our old friend the Butcher, who is a weapons dealer, and she has us do Dirty Ice, a jewelry store heist. Also, just to help us get back on our feet, we meet Vlad, who issues us Rock the Cradle, again, just to help us get back on our feet. I believe Beckett is an original contractor. I don't think he was a DLC contractor in Payday 2. Anyways, he issues us Under the Surface, which, you guessed it, we do just for the sake of getting back on our feet. It has nothing to do with anything. With 3 heists left, Starbreeze promptly panicked, handed the story writing duties to the intern, who promptly handed it to the janitor, who left it on his dining room table after passing out on weed, and finally the janitor's 7-year-old daughter thought was her homework filled in the blanks. After Under the Surface, Shade realizes that Patricia J. Shark is involved for some reason. That for some reason referring both to Shade catching on now, and also for still the sheer confusion I still have of why Shark is involved in this shit. As soon as Shade has a suspicion that Shark is involved, we instantly hit the Golden Shark Bank, during the course of which we are required to steal her homework folder. Now in possession of all her personal Gooner material, Jade, a criminal tech mastermind and hacking wizard, side by side with a tech wizard savant, also can't pierce this server's encryption. Damn, I find that hard to believe. It's only like those two characters' primary trait. Jolly good way to introduce a character we're supposed to really trust by having her fuck up the one responsibility we're told she had. After completing Golden Shark, we get the single worst cutscene in the game. In this cutscene, we see Ralph and Shark on a phone call with each other. And as you might expect, after her bank just being robbed and a insanely sensitive, highly critical server just being stolen, you can imagine that the one of the two of them that is freaking the fuck out would naturally be, it's Ralph. Ralph's the one freaking out, and Shark is the one who is pragmatically telling him to calm down. 'Cause, you know, that makes sense.
How are you so chill? They just bled your bank dry!
Cost of doing business.
Quick reminder, this cutscene occurs potentially only hours after the gang hits the bank. This bitch knows the Payday gang has her server. There's no way in hell she could ever not know that. I don't know about you, but it takes some massive testicles to be this confident that the most notorious gang of criminals who ever robbed couldn't themselves or do not have the connections to have people break into the server. If her balls are really that fucking big, this helicopter shouldn't be able to fly.
It's not ideal, but that's why we took precautions.
Also, I am so curious at what the alleged precautions are, because when I first saw this cutscene, my brain decided, okay, the server must be a trap of some sort. Have the vault be all nice and stuffed so the gang doesn't really think about it too much, and then when they try to get into the server, it's some sort of Trojan horse or thermonuclear bomb trigger or some shit, I don't know. Anyways, sorry, continue.
Oh, this is so fucked! We need to do something. Okay, what about...
Enough! You're whinier than usual, Ralph. Not doing anything stupid, are you?
Anyways, what Shade and Joy conclude is that to get into the server, they need some space-age, uber-charged quantum fuck-off decryptor. The only thing that could do it is like super state-of-the-art, the likes of which probably isn't anywhere near New York. So that's oh hey, look at that. Ralph just had the exact fucking thing we need shipped in to New York so that he can take a look at it, I guess. I would presume it have something to do with his job, but let's be honest, you and me, Ralph did it because Starbreeze needed it to happen. So yeah, this one-of-a-kind technology gets shipped exactly where the gang is. Surprise, surprise, the gang steals it. How painfully convenient.
They're closing in. Are the preparations in place?
I did my part.
Huh? Yeah, sure.
Good. Good. And this is the last time we meet in person.
Agreed.
Sir, perhaps it's best to postpone the deal. That technology...
Are you high? I dumped everything I have left into this deal. It's happening. End of fucking story.
Oh, actually, you know what? No, to the story's credit, it's not that convenient, because even with this state-of-the-art super fuck-off decryptor, damn, there's a password. Well, that fucking sucks. If only we had some kind of, like, super uber hackers that we knew. If only we had some crazy super fuck-ass technology that, oh hey, Keegan Blaine's here. Hello, Payday Gang, I'm Keegan Blaine. Heard you needed this super secret password to this super secret server that happened to go missing like 2 days ago. I actually just met with some random guy, and get this, he showed me, to him a random guy, that he has the super secret password to the super secret server that was stolen a couple days ago. Here's his address, buddies. Oh, look at that, it's right down the fucking road. Okay, bye. I shit you not, that is exactly what happens according to the plot.
I'll be real. This motherfucker's the last one I'd expect to have murky connections.
He's been in business a long time, and he knows how to network. Who are we talking about?
Howdy, y'all. It's been a spell since that thing in Texas. New blood, I see. Name's Blaine Keegan. Pleasure.
Likewise.
Now, about this murky water business. It just so happens I ran into someone a while back. Mason Laurent. Nastiest sort of fella. Ex-military, ex-CIA, ex-various PMC outfits. Including murky water. Nowadays, he's into cybersecurity. I had a meeting with him and took a gander at his security software. Looked an awful lot like the tech you're fixing to crack. Heard the Yankee bastard, no offense, has a penthouse in the city. If I were a gambling man, I'd say your best bet to find one of them encryption keys was to pay him a visit.
If he developed the tech, he's the brains behind the conspiracy. This is it, people. Let's go.
Some random dude who has no affiliation to Shark or literally anything that's been going on. He's just got the password for some reason. So yeah, anyway, you go steal that. Now that you can legally access the server, Joy and Shade instantly decide to leak her goon stash. Cause, you know, it's not like having something like that would be some insane blackmail leverage or anything. Oh yeah, Ralph Garnett got sued for everything he was worth because of the theft of the quantum super decryptor. What? You know what? Fuck it. Sure, why not? So both Shark and Ralph are ruined, and then, oh yeah, Concord's here. Concord actually sends a hit for Shark, which is successful.
Discovery of several leaked documents.
Bastards.
Which, given the history track record, actually kind of a miraculous development. But he also has a hit on Ralph, whose death is framed as a suicide. Because irony, I think. Well, really, I guess to justify the aura farming shot, quote-unquote justify, I mean, he has them killed. Both of whom also were very imminently under the crosshairs of the reactivated and infuriated Payday gang. Could have just waited another like half an hour and they would have done it for you, buddy, but sure, I guess. And for a final I shit you not, that is the story of Payday 3 that Starbreeze believes is worth $70. There's an argument to be made about my analysis that I did not consider a single DLC and any information that it might add to clarify or in any way augment the series of events that shown by the default flow of events. However, my counter argument to that is that I already got scammed by Starbreeze. I don't want your fucking DLC. Give me the game you promised I was buying, or at least a game that's worth the quarter of the space it takes up on my fucking drive before you ask me to pay more for your fucking slop. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, wow, looks like everything about the narrative is fucked at the base level. Truly incredible, masterful fuck up. I don't know that in any medium I have ever consumed, I have come across a story that is so conceptually broken. The first pass of going over notes, I literally, for like an entire hour, was just entirely dumbfounded by the fact that 5 of the 8 heists are entirely irrelevant. Nothing about Shark makes sense at all. For being the genesis of the return of the Payday gang, Ralph has fucking nothing to do with anything. The only thing he does is get Shark involved, again, who I presume is the one, she is the one who brings in Concord. That and one of the most contrived and nonsensical decisions ever. If there is one thing I hope to get out of this video, please, in the comments, find me a single story of any medium penned by any hand, including that of a kindergartner, that has a more logically contrived decision made exclusively to forward the plot. Because I do not think there is one. I genuinely believe that there needs to be legitimately, like, Harvard grade scientific study of Payday 3. I want so badly for there to be just like a 15-hour mega documentary just to scratch the surface at how comprehensively and thoroughly fumbled every aspect of this video game is. Because in my quest to find any good development that Starbreeze has made with this game are exactly these three single things. Number one, the voice acting. Arguably, Starbreeze has nothing to do with it. Number two, the weapon modelers, animators, and concept artists. And finally, pre-launch marketing. It's a point I'm very conflicted on awarding, but it is true that it built up a lot of hype and hope for me. So I suppose it's not the marketing team's fault that they were peddling bullshit and told to sell lies. Aside that, though, the promotional events were really, really cool and laid a damn fine bait for the scam. Well done. Hats off, heisters. And that's it. Those are the only positives I've found, one of which is exceptionally backhanded. Another of which has nothing to do with Starbreeze themselves. So do with that what you will. Okay, so yeah, especially off that last remark, I acknowledge to this point this has been largely destructive. And although I intend to keep the tone as snide and condescending as possible, I'm going to now re-present the story as I have rewritten it. I challenged myself to write it in a way as to require as few extra or major changes to cutscenes, of course no additional heists, and while trying to stay as true as I could to what ChatGPT cooked for Starbreeze. Garnet Group makes a miraculous recovery from the brink of bankruptcy after Nathan Garnet turns over the company to his son. Ralph turned the company towards gold. While still being largely a jewelry business, it is ultimately the shift to bullion that has buoyed the business. It is exactly because of this that Ralph Garnet meets with one Patricia J. Shark. It's a series of complicated business maneuvers that follow. However, ultimately speaking, Ralph and Shark become tight business partners and together create the Golden Shark banking titan. In doing so, unofficially and somewhat under the table at some point, Garnet Group is merged with Golden Shark. Thusly, the name still does not really exist anymore, while still allowing Ralph to have a very significant amount of money, allowing Shark to look good and be the glimmering face of the business. Ralph would still be the comparatively small fry while still having some major sway in the company. Thus, his characterization of being foolish and Shark's blatant lack of respect for him all still makes sense. Of course, over a few years of growing the business together, Garnet becomes aware that Shark is not so clean-cut as she has appeared to be. For in all her time as a key shareholder of Gensec, she is privy to and first notified of new security developments, and thus the keys to thwart them. An advantage she has gracefully pressed ever since Gensec fell to its knees under the Payday Gang. This bond of mutual ire and vendetta is, at least behind the scenes, what actually is keeping them together. However, it's only when the mysterious Concord comes around, showing them proof of the gang's existence, having somehow tracked each and every one down to the last, is he able to convince Ralph to go in on funding a hit against them. with a close business partner who is half of the company she heads, being insistently enthusiastic, and a solid, well-thought-out plan from Concord that she is able to vouch for what with her own criminal ties, does Shark actually allow herself to give in to the hatred and also push her chips in on the plan to assassinate the ghosts of her past. With Garnet and Shark's wallets permitting, the Payday gang might finally be delivered some sweet payback from some bitter memories. Yet something goes awry just before it can be delivered. A watchful eye who made a promise to Bane to keep her eyes over the gang and ensure their safe retirement steps in and alerts each gang member. And as all of this to this point should be shown in a first-time boot or launch cutscene, it's here where perhaps it'd be better a in-game real-time render of the cutscene be playing out for the player, as we are viewing or embodying Dallas, who is in his home somewhere. Again, ideally this be a first-time boot sequence, as this should transition into a tutorial heist of sorts. We the player now have limited control over Dallas, who's in the middle of a workout or watching a podcast or something where he has headphones in. It's not particularly important. What is that he very shortly gets an emergency call from an unknown number. As soon as he picks up, it is Shade. She delivers a panicked and frantic warning that you are about to be in imminent danger and that you will have to defend yourself. We get a short objective wherein we do the typical WASD to move, shift to sprint. Accomplishing this gets us to a bedroom where Dallas equips a pistol, the power on the house goes out, and we hear some explosions. Our current objective is to get through the house to find a safe house. It's reminiscent of the old one from back in the day, having been unable to truly let that life stay behind him. Just like we will find out later, the software to access his safe house is frozen and bricked, just like his bank accounts. And here we play through a brief shootout where we have to break into our own vault, wherein we're able to secure a small stash of cash and weapons. With the power of the sweet, sweet car 4, Dallas fights his way to the getaway vehicle. Upon arriving, we get into another cutscene. We watch as Dallas kills the last of the hit squad, and shortly after, Shade checks back in. Having earned his trust, having literally just saved his life, Shade directs Dallas to the safe house in New York. We see a glimpse of relief in Shade's voice, and a fast goodbye before she leaves to help other gang members. This gives Shade a much better buy-in for trustworthiness, and as we get to directly see and contribute to it, it covers a little distance in making the various hits failing feel less egregious. When we get to see for ourselves, not only how serious the attacks are, but that it was a hard-fought escape. This leads us directly to the cutscene where the gang is all back together. However, instead, the inciting equipment is instead Dallas's. Not only a show of why he is the leader, but also shows that he cares for the others. It additionally characterizes Dallas, and by proxy the rest of the gang, that they were likely not fully happy in the life of retirement. And at least to a degree, they wanted it back. However, it is still Shade who offers them their old masks, which we see each member take with enthusiasm that reinforces this idea. Our first heist is Rock the Cradle, given by Vlad, who is outraged that his former and retired friends have been attacked and is eager to see them retaliate as soon as possible. As he is a contractor who remained active during their retirement, he is essential in the gang finding their footing. Rock the Cradle will play mostly the same, allowing the players to get a feel for the new casing system and ability to act unmasked. However, they are here for both the money drug vault and the crypto wallet. A little of the old, a little of the new. Could also easily be formatted where each of the vaults embody the old and new methods. Stealing the crypto wallet directly leads Shade to mention C-Stacks if they absolutely must stay, as well as Vlad would then welcome another old friend of the gang's, Pilot Bile. Having the first heist be the one that mentions crypto existing also means the game can give you a starting balance and have that make sense. The starting balance should be enough that one exchange of C-Stacks allows the player to buy whatever is available, and for the player to see for themselves that the exchange rate gets worse the more you buy without getting burned by that. In the way that the game is actually formatted, after you do No Rest for the Wicked, C-stacks just come up for no reason. Where formatting it this way, I feel, allows the game to transition into a tutorial much more cleanly and logically. Next up is Road Rage. Having a heist that should be stealthed as a sort of first time should then be followed by the action-packed Forced Loud. Road Rage itself doesn't require any major revisions, although it would be nice if the helicopter were a little bit more engaged. The only major difference to Road Rage should be the extraction. The gang should rappel down and actually land onto a truck bed, where they then partake in a sort of rail shooter getaway sequence, completed with bile flying above the truck for a short period. After Road Rage, we get the cutscene where the villains are lamenting their failure, and we see Shark is instead the one who is most frustrated by this turn of events, as it puts her in the crosshair just as she worried it might. After all, Shark has the most to lose and had the least to gain. The gang then does Dirty Ice. By finding the dirt on the manager, the hint of the Garnet Group making it big in gold after being robbed out of diamonds is shared to the players. Additionally, this location is a Garnet Group location, and it is this heist that is prompted with the cutscene of Ralph freaking out. Ralph is freaking out about his location being robbed instead of Shark's, because when there are two people in a call and one of them just got robbed, it's the one who got robbed who is freaking out, Starbreeze. Not only does this change make it so that Shark is not a complete nonce, but actually instead justifies her comment about him not doing anything stupid. Her comment about an expected risk also now isn't an insanely absurd thing for her to say. As again, in this telling, the gang is currently flailing and robbing anything they can get their pointed at. Of course, a high quality jewelry store would be one of the first things they're gonna aim for. Them hitting that location right now doesn't necessarily mean anything about what the gang does or doesn't know. Next up is Under the Surface, I guess, because it was here at launch and I gotta fit it in somewhere. Under the Surface has nothing to do with anything as it is, and low-key I kinda like it for that. And yeah, whereas I can feel I can squeeze in some plot relevance to the rest of these heists, Under the Surface is just so far its own thing. Anyways, now is when we do No Rest for the Wicked, although it could certainly do with a name change now. The extra files in the deposit box will actually serve as a hint to Shark, in that there is mass upgrading to the Golden Shark security, the likes of which include new state-of-the-art revolutionary GenSect software, and with that, No Rest for the Wicked has served its purpose. Not only does it make natural sense for Shark to do that in response to Garnet being robbed, while also being an inconspicuous action anyway, this hint also gives Shade the ability to have the plans for the Golden Shark heist and put it in her sights. After all, it's a big bank, plus I will spoil it here, in this reformatting of the story, Golden Shark is the finale heist. And dropping a hint like this, as well as having dialogue explaining that while she has to think about it and do some planning, actually sets up and starts building some suspense. Again, with only 8 heists, some of which having to serve as only just the gang getting back on their feet, it won't be able to build up to anything groundbreaking. But at least how Payday 3 is actually formatted, the only thing that makes Touch the Sky feel like a finale is that there's nothing after it. Anyways, after No Rest for the Wicked is when we do 99 boxes. And this heist is going to be largely different from how it actually is. Not actually to facilitate any narrative purposes, but just because 99 boxes is a terrible heist. In my version, Garnet is panicking and has done something stupid. He is having large quantities of various loot shipped out overseas where it will be out of the gang's reach, with veritable treasure troves across dozens of cargo containers. The gang is able to steal all sorts of loot from gold, jewelry, cash, and even state-of-the-art tech, which does have to be kept cool to retain its value. No longer is the tech actually particularly relevant, but gives it something kinda like Shadow Raid's Odu Nobunaga armor, in that there is at least one unique set of loot that has some extra steps to it. During the dialogue that Shade will say during the heist, she will note that it's strange to her that Garnet is reacting so hastily and desperately. calling out that it implicates Garnet having some sort of deeper fear in the Payday gang, and one she doesn't want to rule out is simply fear of the gang's past hits on him. This allows Shade to be very smart and perceptive without having to feed her a hint that just comes from nowhere for no reason other than to serve the plot. From the cutscenes the player will be shown, and as well the previous cutscene where Shark foreshadows that Ralph is going to do something stupid, here we actually validate that, and have Ralph do something stupid isn't quite as nonsensical as having the only equipment on the planet that can crack security of a server that was stolen yesterday be shipped from overseas into the reach of the gang who fucking that very server. Shade wants a little more time to prepare for Golden Shark, so we do touch the sky here. Instead of getting the encryption key for the server from Golden Shark, instead it is the new GenSec software they're after, as the bigwig who developed it is preparing for a big release conference for it. As remember, with Shark being a key shareholder, and as well as the hint in No Rest for the Wicked is supposed to convey, Shark is using these systems before they're released, which the gang knows because they found that hint, and then lo and behold that they announced that they're going to be doing a conference where they're showing off this new software. Well, there's going to be a hell of a lot of people at the conference, most of which pose a cleaning cost risk, so it's no stretch to imagine that they would decide it better to steal it from the luxury artsy-fartsy apartment this GenSec bigwig owns and is staying before the conference. After all, it would be where he is. So better to risk breaking and entering there than with the hundreds of eyes at an actual conference theater. There we go, touch the sky is justified. It makes sense why we're doing it. It makes sense what we're getting out of it. And again, actually leads us up to the finale, Golden Shark Bank. I also think there's something to be stated about taking advantage of the relatively small-scale appearing Touch the Sky, robbing a single luxury apartment, and sneaking in through the top vents and having an aerial approach, basically, to then metaphorically stare down Shark herself, one of the main antagonists, in the very large and impressive scale of the Golden Shark Bank. With the prize of Touch the Sky just really being a hard drive, it also makes it feel a lot less like the ending point, when here at Golden Shark it is certainly the biggest direct haul. Of these 8 heists, Golden Shark Bank is certainly the biggest one they do, so having it formatted here as an actual finale instead of third to last, it in all its scale is the final boss. Its physical presence is a lot more indicative of this. And especially with the way I formatted, I feel a little bit of the build up to this serves to enhance the heist a little bit more, which I feel is ultimately the purpose of the background narrative of the Payday games. At least here in my version, it fucking makes sense if you look at how anything connects to anything else. So yeah, we do Golden Shark, and it plays pretty much exactly how it does currently. Afterwards, a cutscene of Shark losing her shit plays, where she absolutely crashes out on Garnet, and we also see that Concord isn't fazed by this. We have some ominous shots of him in the first cutscene, however here, we double down on that chin scratch, chin scratch. Additionally, Joy and Shade are together able to crack the server they steal as it has no extra space-age bullshit encryption junk, and they begin working on a way to use that data in a blackmail scheme until we find out not only has Shark sued Ralph/Garnet Group, but over the course of a few days, Ralph is found dead of suicide, and Shark is killed in a tragic car accident. These of course being the doings of Concord, whose scene of him in the car instead has him revealing to us the audience that his goal was simply to use Shark and Garnet to resurrect the Payday gang. This leaves us with an exceedingly more interesting why to Concord, as the current reason we had to him killing Shark and Garnet was literally just a confused, why though? This not only has everybody acting according to character traits without insane and illogical decision making, while also putting Concord in an extreme power status to expand off of as the mastermind of the gang's resurrection. It paints an enticing mystery as he's extremely well connected, secretive, and very well informed, while at the same time willing to take advantage of and betraying allies for his own gain. Additionally, as Payday 3 is meant to be a live service, and this arc is not the ending of the game, more heists should continue down the line with DLC releases contributing to various other arcs of story. Thusly, it gives us a very nice wide open door looking boldly ahead. Off of this, it gives the writer the ability to go in the directions of Concord as a contractor, making him essentially the spiritual successor to the dentist, continue building mystery and intrigue about why he wanted the gang to come back, develop and give hints at a potential vendetta or a reason for him to have brought the gang back, or to have killed Garnet and Shark. And I did this entire Payday 3 rewrite in like 2 fucking hours. I revised and went back and added like 2 sentences from a first draft, and yet still managed to have better characterization, better flow, made connection between each heist mean anything to the actual story than just redundantly hinting at what heist is coming next, and gives you a humiliatingly better and more interesting launchpad into the next arc. So yeah, bam, Payday 3 and its justification to spark the return of the notorious gang significantly more sensibly, shot out in like 2 hours. Rewind and compare that to what, allegedly, a couple of years and dozens of people, at least, well...
Congratulations!
Starbreeze.
You're a failure.